Hello, teachers and parents. Logic grid puzzles are great for critical thinking and deductive reasoning. Let's look at 3 logic grid puzzle books so you can figure out what will work for your students and your kids. First, the Mindbender series by Anita Harnedek. There are some great things about this series. The most important is that the earlier books have simple puzzles working up to large puzzles later on. For kids who are learning about deductive reasoning, this is a huge plus. The book I read for this review was Level 4. It's a nice level because this is where we transition from the basic grid shape to more complex grids. Another thing I love about this series is the teaching suggestions at the beginning. Almost all logic grid puzzle books have the basic instructions about how to use the grid. The Mindbender instructions stand out because they show the instructor the puzzles from a child's point of view. One thing I don't love as much about Mindbenders is the gender clues. Those are the clues that depend on students being able to follow this instruction, which reads, "Assume that only males have traditionally male names, and only females have traditionally female names, but be careful not to make such assumptions about unisex names." The first problem here is that all children may not know which names are traditionally male, traditionally female, and traditionally unisex. If you're a teacher and you want your class content to be accessible to English language learners or other students who may lack such knowledge, gender clues simply don't fit with those goals. The second problem with gender clues is that some solvers may object to them because they don't like making assumptions about people's gender based on names. This issue is something where you'll have to decide if it's a deal breaker in your school or your family. Let's look at an example puzzle. Amherst, Bartlett, Croft, Davies, and Enders each have a favorite form of transportation. Read the clues to find each person's transportation. When I read this, what jumped out at me is that these surnames are all European. And that is true throughout this book. All the names in the book are of European derivation, except for a total of 3 names, 1 each in 3 different puzzles. And there are also 3 puzzles with names from Spanish-speaking cultures. Then one last thing about Mindbenders, and this is a very good thing. The solutions provide logical reasoning solvers can use to get from the clues to the answers. So when a student comes to you to ask why a certain answer is what it is, you don't have to stop what you're doing and work out the entire puzzle. You can just find the explanation. Let's move on to 50 Logic Puzzles by Suzanne Hai. Every one of these puzzles has the same size, very large grid as the one on the cover. So this book is not the best choice for getting students started. Another minus for kids is that although this book doesn't say adult in the title or on the cover, the target audience is clearly adults. There are at least 2 puzzles that mention alcohol, and one puzzle is about which jail cell is holding which inmate, and it describes some alleged crimes that are violent. Some of the puzzles may be appropriate for classrooms, but read them carefully to make sure a puzzle upholds the culture of your school before you give it to students. This book is another one where the names are almost all European. The solutions are just answers with no explanations. The clues use complex sentence structures, advanced vocabulary words, and idiomatic language. That means if students are ready for a deductive reasoning challenge but are not comfortable reading at a high level, these puzzles won't be a good fit. An example puzzle is about script writing. Bess, Bo, Benny, Blair, and Brigitte are all screenwriters writing scripts for 5 different movies to star 5 different movie stars and using 5 different writing methods. The last book is Logic Puzzles by Clarity Media. A strength of this book is that the clues use simple, unambiguous language, which is important for accessibility in classrooms. This book has all large grids, the same size as the one on the cover. Again, almost all the names are European, and the solutions are just answers with no explanations. I think a lot of teachers would be very interested to find logic grid puzzle books where the stories represented a wider range of cultures and the solutions provided explanations. If you know of books like that, please tell us about them in the comments and I'll review them in a later video. In Logic Puzzles by Clarity Media, several puzzles do mention alcohol, so be aware this is another book that wasn't written specifically for kids. If you're English, you'll enjoy that these puzzles are set in England. For example, one puzzle called From the North is about the cities of Carlisle, Liverpool, Newcastle, Preston, and York, which are all in the north of England. That's 3 logic puzzles reviewed for kids. I'll do more reviews in a later video, so if you have a review request, please leave it in the comments.